Well, hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on an old wooden boat in Victoria, British Columbia, along with the loving memory of my pup Geordie. No, not that one. And in fact, not this one either, although some of you may recognize that this is my friend's boat, MV Zephyrus. So what we're doing now is we have it up on the hard for some pretty major maintenance to the bottom. Obviously paint top sides and bottom, but also some refastening. Anyway, you're going to learn all about it. Let's get on with it. And it's pretty apparent that we've already done the bulk of the work. In fact, we're launching tomorrow, but I hadn't shot an intro yet, so I thought I'd better do it. So you can see the boat's looking pretty good. Let's figure out how it was that we got to here anyway. Okay then, well, here we are on day 2, our first real day. So we're gonna start poking around. I did a little bit of poking around already, and soon I'll give you an idea of what I think about what's going on with the hull. I like the weekends because it's pretty quiet here. Perfect hull out weather, cool and not raining. All right, let's get to work. Okay, so I've been running around the whole boat, digging out the garbage seams, taking out the Sikaflex 291, which I put in there 3 years ago. In most places, 99% of the places, it's stuck really well. In fact, it's been amazing. But I want to get the cotton, or possibly oakum, out from behind it, clean the joints properly, recock it properly, and repay it with something. I'm not going to promise it's not going to be 291, but I'm sure some of you are wincing that I say that. Yeah. Anyway, so my first pass with my first version of the reefing tool will be really just to get the rubber out. Then I'm going to be a little more careful and perhaps make a larger, easier to pull file reefing tool to get out the oakum and cotton. But for now, let's just get all the rubber out. You folks enjoying this as much as I am? That's a pretty long one. I think you've seen enough. A lot of poking along, checking stuff out, experimenting with some new tools, particularly a new 6-inch sander, which was absolutely fantastic. And I raked out at least the paying, which in this case was actually $291, of the garbage seam, both sides. No fun, no fun. Started to do some sanding to check out where how we're going to do with removing the bottom paint and fairing a little bit. The reason I'm doing sanding again is because this was a hybrid paint, and although it worked fairly well, we're going to switch to regular bottom paint and get the bulk of it off. I also want to make sure I can see every seam and every butt joint and check for loose bungs and fasteners. As you can see, there is some damage here. This had filler over it, like a putty of some sort, and I haven't yet determined whether this is a collision damage or whether it's rot, and I've poked at it and it doesn't seem to be rot. There's a fastener right there which may be causing something. Anyway, gonna have to do something about that. Those of you who remember the old haul out, there's a lot of filler in through here. These hood ends were in bad shape, and I filled them with epoxy filler, but they've held so well. I imagined I was going to replace some of these planks, these hood end planks, but I'm not sure I am. But we'll see, we'll see. Come around the other side. Again, done more sanding, and getting to see the bulk of the butt blocks, which may be bad. So here's an example of a butt block. Probably not too bad. I haven't really assessed it yet. You can see our system for being able to use the sink, and we do the same thing on the other side for the shower. It works great. This thing's a godsend. My gosh, I had the boat blocked up an extra 18 inches, and to be able to roll around under here like this has absolutely changed working on the bottom. So again, here you can see the open garbage seam, and I'm not quite finished. I haven't done it above the skeg area yet because it's in very good shape there, and I may not actually even open it up. On the whole, again, really pleased. I haven't seen anything at all that I'm unhappy with. The boat has certainly held itself together very nicely over the last 3 years. I'll carry on with some stuff and keep you up to date. Things I really want to do this haul out is deal with the bleeders on the splash rail here. I'm assuming we call that a rub rail and this a splash rail, but whatever, I'm not gonna worry about it. Anyway, last time these bleeders had come through and I just sanded and painted, but there's obviously iron fasteners holding this on, as well as some that are underneath so they bleed under, and on the other side it's the same. There's no way I can make this rust go away without taking these rails off. So that's a bit of a job. Basically, I'm gonna have to scrape, find all the fasteners, dig out the putty or wood, dig out the anyway, so we'll be doing that. There are still a number of regular bleeders. They're not as obvious as they were last time we hauled because there are so many fewer of them. Some of them are actually just in seams where moisture is getting in and rusting nails, and it's coming out the seam. Much harder to track down than the ones that are literally just a bung where moisture is getting in and rusting the head of a nail. So this one I've already dug out, and there's really very few, but there are a couple. Again, there's a fastener, but here it is coming out through the planking, so much harder to deal with. Other than that, rust work, topside work, I don't know if any people who watched the last haul out of this boat, this boat is tight seamed in red cedar above the waterline. In other words, it shouldn't have any putty in the seams. And what happened is it had an extended haul out, 6-8 weeks once, and dried way out. And someone filled all the joints with filler. So it would look nice when they launched it again. But unfortunately, when the cedar swelled up again, it crushed all the fibers and spat out all the filler, and it's never really been right since. So of course I'm very hesitant to put any filler in these because I don't want to recreate that same error, but trying to make the boat look sort of nice is a bit tough. But we'll just have to cope with that. On my boat, it's really amazing. The planks are in very good shape, and they open up. They open way up. From inside, you can look outside in really dry weather, but it closes up again in the damp weather, and it's just fine. Anyway, so we'll get to all that. Anyway, that's enough for now. Let's do some actual work. Okay, listen, I just can't say enough about this sander. The sander's brand new. It's been used one day, and yes, it's now covered with bottom paint. But this is a Bosch 6-inch random orbital. It's the new version. This thing is a beast. It has 2 modes, aggressive and unbelievably aggressive. I'm using it with these Abranet sanding abrasive net discs, which are fantastic. They're basically completely porous, abrasive on this side and hook and loop on that side, along with a good vacuum attachment and a good shop vac type thing. It is almost dustless, which for working in a marina and working on bottom paint is a real advantage. Anyway, I'm not really much for endorsing things, and I actually particularly like Makita tools, but apparently the Makita version of this is nowhere close to the quality. This is made in Germany. Okay. Business is finding the fasteners. These two are pretty easy because they're nice teak plugs. But as I work my way along here, I'm just gonna have to scrape to find them. There's one. There we go. Okay, so some of these plugs are filler and some of them are wood. Yeah, different techniques. Both involve heat. Devoted boat ownership. You go. Better her than me. Well, will be me shortly. So in terms of the bleeders, I've gone around and marked them all with a piece of tape because as you start to sand or clear the paint off, it gets hard to tell exactly where they were. Next job is to scrape off the paint and expose the fastener itself. Some of these will be original bungs that are now starting to fail, and some of them will be attempts at having fixed it before that has failed. So far I haven't found any of those. And then it's day 3. Let's see what we're up to. No, it's not day 3. I was just editing and I didn't have a hello, it's day 3. So hello, it's day 3. For these fasteners, they've been covered with a putty. The only solution really is to heat it up and then dig it out with a pick. Here I am trying to get the existing fasteners out of this splash rail, and they are slot head screws, and I just can't get a bite on them, so I'm gonna have to drill them out. And here's something a lot of people may not even risk doing. You can actually hold, you know what it's like trying to get a drill started on anything that's already not countersunk, but if you can actually hold the drill, as long as you hold it above the flutes, or whatever you call it. I think of them as flutes anyway, the drilling part, and guide it in quite easily. Day 3 quitting time review. First off, I gotta apologize. For some reason the camera is in telephoto mode, so I'm sure everything I shot today you can only see little. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. Okay, mostly sanded the bottom. Mostly took all the bungs out of all the bleeders. None of the bleeders are bleeders I've already treated 3 years ago, which is pretty cool, which means the treatment is working. These are all new ones. Well, of course, you're going to chase bleeders with every haul out. Bleeder, I should probably explain what a bleeder is. You can see rust coming out of this hole. Well, that's a fastener. On this boat, that's a nail. It was originally a galvanized boat nail, round-headed nail, that's driven through the plank and through the frame inside and then bent over on the inside. Some people call that clinching or clenching, which means they're impossible to remove. Now, if they're in good shape, that's fine. You don't even have to remove them. And on the whole, they're in fantastic shape on this boat. Even the bleeders are only a little bit of rust on the head. Every one that I can get at, I run my awl on. I won't talk about this in detail. There are only little bits of surface rust on them. They are still incredibly solid. So the fastenings on this boat on the whole are in great, appear to be, to me. I'm not a shipwright, but I've done some research, I've talked to some people, and the boat is still fair. In other words, there's no planks buckling and moving around. I haven't seen any evidence of fasteners failing. However, I haven't pulled any, which is the de facto standard for checking a fastener, because you can't. So in the not too distant future, this boat will be refastened. In other words, extra screws going in between the existing ones or possibly into sister frames. Anyway, more about that later. Bottom line is I have to chase bleeders at every haul out, because eventually the original plug that was there fails and lets moisture in, which rusts the head. So we'll go into detail about how we're going to deal with that some more. Otherwise, I've been all over the bottom of the boat and I've checked all the butt blocks, butt joints, and they're all in excellent shape. They really are. So it's quite possible I won't bother fixing or scarfing out any butt joints to create a continuous plank with a scarfed in Dutchman. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One of the reasons, and we have to shoot back in time, is because, well, I got a lot of advice from the Wooden Boat Forum, Internet Wooden Boat Forum. Why would you do that, Peter? If your butt joints are in good shape, put a few more fasteners in and don't worry about it, which is probably what I'm going to do. I had this mindset that I wanted to replace all the butt joints on the boat because I'm terrified of butt joints, because I have one bad butt joint on my boat. Well, there's no bad butt joints on this boat, and butt joints are okay as long as you look after them, pay attention to them, and keep them fastened. Bottom line is, that's probably what I'm going to do. So, if I just jump ahead again to where we are now, boats don't sink by water leaking in planks, let's say little joints like that. They might leak, but they're not going to sink as long as you have a bilge pump. Boats sink when a plank comes flying off. Some people call that springing a plank, which can happen only at the end of a plank. So at the bow, which they call the hood end, at a butt joint, or at the transom. So what I am going to do is go to the trouble of refastening at all the ends of all the planks below the waterline. In other words, all the way down the stem. Well, there's not really very many here, and there's a ton of meat in there because the stem has a rabbet cut in it. In other words, a notch for the planks to go into, and there's plenty of meat behind that, so I can get lots. I can put a second line of screws in there. At the butt joints, we'll talk about how we're going to do it, and at the transom. This is how we shower. I hope Captain Zephyrus won't mind me showing you her dirty shower water. Yesterday it was really green. Try to catch the bulk of it here. We'll do the same thing on the other side for the dishwasher and the sink. Anyway, so it was a good day. It was a really good day. I got all the plugs out of the splash rail, and I'm starting to drill out some of the screws because they're not going to come out easily. On the whole, it's going great. I get the next shower. See you tomorrow. Well, good morning, morning of day 4. Look at this, 3 woodies in a row. This pretty little thing came in this morning, hand built by the owner in his backyard. Absolutely beautiful. I'll have a good look at that later. Okay, late start again. Trying to get office work done at the same time. But we'll carry on today. I'm going to sand under where the pads are, which means I have to move each pad, sand under it. Last little bit of sanding underneath, get the rails off, start to Dremel out the rusty heads on the bleeders. And I think I've decided that this damage we saw on the port side yesterday, basically right, where is it? Here, merits a Dutchman, which ironically may be the only Dutchman we put in the boat with the scarfing slide. All that work for nothing. So there's a frame here and there's a frame here. So we'll scarf from there to there and replace this section of plank. Now there's a bit of twist to it and a bit of bend to it as well, but that's why I bought the cedar extra thick, so I won't have to steam that to get that twist in there. I can just fair it, I think. Cheers. So I got to move each stand and sand underneath it. Of course, later we'll have to move each stand and paint underneath it. Some people would do them at the same time, but because I want to be able to see every bit of the bottom of the boat, looking for butt blocks and bad paying, I'm going to do this in 2 stages. Put this one back, move on. Yeah, fun. Alright then, well, it's time to start dealing with the bleeders. And if I get my light in the right place and you in the right place, you may be able to see in there. There's a rusty nail in there. Gosh, I don't know if you can see it. Anyway, it's a round-headed boat nail that was nailed into a countersunk hole when the boat was built, and they're prone to getting rusty on the heads. What I do is with a Dremel tool. Now, if you can see these 3 Dremel bits I have here, it seems every year I can't find the same Dremel bits as I found in the past. What I have on the left is an abrasive stone. In the middle I have a carbide burr, very, very tiny, and on the right I have a tiny little wire brush. So between the 3 I can clean up the rust off the head and the wood around it, any dry old punky bits of wood, so that I can then soak the whole thing with CPES, clear penetrating epoxy sealant, a couple of coats, and then filler, and this won't rust again. I'm going to start with the burr. Move on to the abrasive stone. And finish up with the brush. So if you look in there now, I'm not going to say it's shiny, but the bulk of the actual rust is gone, and that will make a pretty fine little repair. We get some epoxy on that. First we're going to let it dry out for another day or so. I've got to say this is going a lot better than I thought, considering I had to drill the heads off almost all the screws. There we go. Good gosh, I tell you, this is a busy yard. That's a big boat. All right, well, this little Dutchman here at the just above the water line has gone really pretty well. Made a little block to go in, and Oh yeah, that's plenty good for me. Excellent. I made it extra thick just because it's much easier to handle it when it's thick. And I'll bond that in and put some screws right through, and then just take the power planer and level it off. Well, hello and welcome to the Beer of the Week, live from Poets Cove Marina in Bedwell Harbor, South Pender Island in the Gulf Islands, and we're finally cruising, which that's a hot tip. Anyway, so what have we got this week? We've got from category 12 the Chromatic IPA. Yes, another IPA. I know, I just happen to like them. So we're pretty excited. This is actually our second day out cruising after the haul out, and I realize that's kind of a twist in time because you've just watched basically the first episode on the haul out, but fear not, we're going to move through the haul out videos pretty quick with a couple of bonus episodes, so you won't have to wait too long. I'm going to pass this to the owner of Zephyrus while I pour my own. So yeah, so now this begins a couple of days cruising with some fine wooden boats that are members of the CYA, the Classic Yacht Association. And we've been touring around the Southern Gulf Islands and having a great time. So, Chromatic IPA from category 12. Cheers.
Cheers.
See what we think of this. Very even. No. Sort of bitter, hoppy. It's got the, but no real burst of flavor, no real interest. It's just not interesting.
It's an IPA.
It's an IPA. I guess we're going to have to call it just another IPA. But there are so many, and it's very drinkable. I always feel bad when I don't like a beer, and then I have to go on and cheers two new patrons that came on, which I'm going to do. Thanks so much to James Rogers and Cullen Bryant, two new patrons that have come on. It's been a couple of weeks. It's just haven't had a chance to thank you. So cheers to you both. And cheers to all the patrons and other supporters of every sort that's helping, because I certainly couldn't do this without you. Now, some of you have been waiting for the second wrench bottle opener giveaway from my friend Mike, and we're going to give it away today. So, what's it going to be? I think the word for this is going to be cruising. Yes, cruising. If you would like to win a bottle opener made from a wrench with a leather tag stamped with TWG for Travels with Geordie, use the word cruising in a comment down below, and I'll ship this off to you wherever you are in the world. All right, see you next week. That's enough.
When are we going to do a Scotch of the week? No, we're hoping for the first one. We don't have it yet.
Right, exactly.
It's a little chilly out, you could say.
It is. Okay, so I messed that up, and you all know it, because you actually need two words of the week, right? You need one for the wrench, and you need one for the t-shirt that I give away every week. So I've just been scratching my head with the help of the owner of Zephyrus. We've come up with, I've forgotten it already. Weather, because we're hoping for some good weather, because it hasn't been fabulous, to tell you the truth. Okay, so if you'd like to win a Travels with Geordie t-shirt, use the word weather in a comment down below, and I'll pick it random from the first 24 hours. You all know what this is all about, don't you? If you're really clever, you can use a comment that uses both the words weather and what was the word for the wrench? Cruising in the same sentence. We're still pretty tired. Anyway, okay, so I think I've said everything I have to say, except cheers. And
happy Friday.
See you next week. Right. Yeah.
Not allowed to say what